They acted fast, unlike when they were told to bow to the giant statue. If Jinwoo was wrong, they would get hurt as soon as they approached the statues. But no one doubted him at that moment. Song found one that worked first. He held his breath as he looked up. The statue moved its fingers toward a harp. Strum strum. The sound was beautiful. It worked. Someone shouted. Everyone rushed to find statues with instruments. One statue played a shiny bugle. Another with a flute joined in, and a third strummed a lyre. Kim was so tired he fell to the ground near the statue, holding the lute. Plink, clink. The giant statue stopped chasing Kim when the smaller one began playing its lute. Still on his knees, Kim started crying as emotions filled him. He sob. The giant spun around. It looked around and then focused on Jinwoo. Crap. Jinwoo muttered as their eyes met. His heart pounded really hard. He was drenched in sweat. Why isn't this thing working? He glared at the stone statue in front of him. Though it held a drum, it gave no sign of moving anytime soon. Stomp, stomp. The giant statue was moving really fast. It had just been all the way on the opposite side of the enclosure, but it was quickly closing the gap. Jinwoo gulped. Is it because both Johee and I are standing here? He couldn't think of any other explanation. The rest of the stone guards played their instruments without any issues. There was no time to think. Jinwoo set Johee down and prepared to run. Jinwoo, she grabbed his sleeve nervously. He whispered, if we stay together we'll both die. Tears filled her eyes. Jinwoo felt Johee's hand trembling as she held onto his sleeve, but there was no time to explain what was happening. He gently pulled her hand free and ran away from her. Boom! 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 Jinwoo looked back and saw the stone statue behind Johee start drumming slowly. Good, he still had one more thing left to do, find another musician to stay safe with. Jinwoo was the only one not yet protected by a statue playing an instrument. All of the giant monster's anger was aimed at Jinwoo. He ran fast to get across the room, avoiding the giant's feet that were as big as houses. Stomp! Stomp! He tripped and fell but escaped getting crushed. Huff huff. Even though Jinwoo was just an E-rank hunter, his strong body helped him survive. He watched the giant's moves and used all his strength to run. He hurried up. He was just a few steps away from a stone statue. Not that one, Song shouted loudly. Jinwoo, who had been focused only on the giant statue, quickly turned his head in surprise. Oh, what he thought was a musical instrument from far away was actually a shield. The statue swung its shield without stopping. Whoa! Jinwoo shouted, throwing himself to the side. No, Johee cried out. Jinwoo looked up as he rolled and saw the giant right above him. This keeps happening. His vision got blurry because blood from a cut on his forehead got into his eyes, likely from his quick roll. Everything around him started to blur, making it hard to see clearly. Jinwoo quickly scanned his surroundings. He was searching for a statue holding an instrument, but could not find any no matter how hard he looked. The giant lifted its massive foot, as if to crush him. Ah! Jinwoo rolled away just in time. Stomp! He knew he couldn't keep dodging much longer. He felt dizzy and had trouble keeping his balance. He whispered, hoping someone or something could help him. At that moment he noticed a statue. It wasn't holding any weapons or instruments. Is that? Jinwoo put all his hope into that figure and slowly crawled toward it. Finally he faced the giant coming towards him and sat down. He was out of energy. Huff! Huff! He tried to catch his breath while watching the giant get closer. Its frown seemed even worse now that Jinwoo had avoided it so many times. The giant stood right in front of him. It was as tall as a skyscraper and made Jinwoo feel overwhelmed. The giant just stared silently at him. Jinwoo thought this must be the end. He was sure his death would come from those eyes fixed only on him. Suddenly Jinwoo heard beautiful singing coming from behind him. He turned around. A statue holding a book began to sing with a lovely voice. Each time it sang, the sound filled the room. The giant's face slowly returned to its normal expression. The serious wrinkled face relaxed back into a calm expression. The giant turned around after the song ended. Like the smaller statues, it walked quietly back to its throne, as if nothing had happened. Thud! The loud noise of the giant sitting down echoed through the temple. Jinwoo let out a tired smile. Huff! I guess I made it. Johee ran quickly toward him. Jinwoo. She ran as fast as she could to his side, and knelt down, tears streaming down her face. What am I supposed to do? What can I do? She tried to use her magic to heal him, but nothing worked. The hunters slowly gathered around Jinwoo one by one. Their faces were serious. Oh no. Jinwoo. He was crying hard. Jinwoo gasped. He wanted to ask why everyone was upset, but he couldn't speak. He tried to sit up and felt sharp pains in his body. He looked down and realized something was very wrong. His right leg was cut off at the knee. Jinwoo then looked around until he found the stone statue with a shield. The blood on the edge of its weapon was easy to see. His leg was just below the shield. Drip. 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 Jo-hee's nose began to bleed, showing she had reached her limit. Sadly, even B-rank healing magic couldn't fix a cut-off limb. It was like trying to fill a leaking pot with water. That's enough, Jo-hee. You can stop now. I'll fix you. I'll make you better. The others watched them with pitiful glances. Only 6 remained of the 17 people who'd come here. 2 of the 6 had been badly hurt. Song had lost an arm, and Jinwoo had lost a leg. They had survived, but no one felt like celebrating. Then another noise filled the room. Krrr. K. The symbol at the center of the temple lifted off the ground. You must show your faith. Jinwoo had an idea what this meant. The final test. The symbol on the floor rose to about 2 feet high and stopped. An altar, Jinwoo said quietly, but the other hunters were listening closely. Did he just say altar? The person who had saved their lives twice was not some powerful being, but Jinwoo, a low-ranked hunter they usually underestimated. If it weren't for Jinwoo, things would have been much worse. Everyone felt the same way. His words were their only hope. Jinwoo accidentally said the word altar without thinking. Kim quickly figured out what was happening. I get it, he said as he pulled out a sword from his side. The sword was meant for fighting monsters, but now was needed for something else. I'm not the smartest person, Kim said, but I understand what's going on here. The others grew uneasy when they saw the sharp sword in Kim's hand. Hey Kim, why did you pull out your weapon? Someone asked. Let's talk about this instead, another voice suggested, with the highest-ranking member of their group, Song, injured. There was no one left to calm down Kim. He was considered strong for a D-rank hunter. Kim pointed his sword at the altar. The last rule was you must show your faith, and an altar appeared in the middle of the room. He looked at Jinwoo. Doesn't this mean we need to give up someone, Song? Jinwoo nodded. He had thought the same thing. One of the 6 people left would have to be sacrificed. That's probably what the last rule meant. Jinwoo had come to that conclusion. Then he sensed someone coming near and saw something unsettling in Kim's eyes, as the older man walked toward him. A bead of sweat slid down Jinwoo's face. Mr. Kim, what? Be quiet and stay still, Mr. Kim shouted, pointing his sword at Song, who knelt beside Jinwoo to check his injuries. Who got us into this? It was Song, right? So shouldn't he take responsibility for this mess, and see it through? Mr. Kim. Jinwoo tried to stand up angrily, but stopped when Song placed his rough hand on his shoulder. He looked at Song. Song silently shook his head. His eyes were begging Jinwoo not to say anything. Jinwoo wanted to speak up but stayed silent. Song struggled to his feet. Kim is right. I need to handle this. Looks like we agree now. Old man, Kim said, pointing his sword at the altar. If you understand, let's finish this. More than 10 people are already dead because of you. Kim's close friend, Park, had also lost his life. With his mind filled by sadness and anger, Kim had forgotten that they had all voted before entering the difficult dungeon. Song spoke to Kim. I'll handle this myself. So could you put away your sword? Kim said no right away. Why should I trust you? Stop talking and keep moving. Song let out a deep breath and started walking toward the altar. Kim followed him, still pointing his sword at Song's back. Jinwoo watched them with worry. This isn't Mr. Song's fault. We all agreed to this plan. Song didn't deserve the blame just because things went wrong. Jinwoo wasn't strong enough to stop Kim. Kim was one of the strongest D-rankers while Jinwoo was the weakest among E-rankers. The difference in their power was easy to see. Things got even worse. Jinwoo was now missing a leg. If he faced Kim, he would put himself and Jo-hee in danger. Jo-hee was still helping him get better. This is so frustrating. Jinwoo closed his eyes tightly. He had never felt weaker or more helpless. Song had already reached the altar. Suddenly a single red flame appeared with a loud whooshing sound. Everyone watched anxiously to see what would happen next. However, nothing occurred. The only thing that happened was the appearance of the flame, even after waiting a long time, and still nothing happening. Kim, who had pushed Song onto the altar, and the others were confused. Kim turned back to look at Jinwoo. Hey Song, were we wrong? Jinwoo shook his head. I'm not sure either. They had believed that the third commandment would be fulfilled if they sacrificed someone on the altar. Maybe it's not about offering a sacrifice. This wasn't bad news for them. If it wasn't about a sacrifice, then Song didn't have to die. Jinwoo's face brightened. He was sweating a lot as he tried to stand. 2 hunters quickly came to help him up. I want to see the altar, Jinwoo said. Can you help me get there? Jinwoo, your wound is still bad. Juhee stood with him. He leaned on her as they walked towards the altar. She was extremely pale from using too much of her magic. She had managed to keep his bleeding and pain as low as possible. Jinwoo knew he needed to act fast. Juhee was in bad shape. Kim was getting angry. Song was hurt, and the other hunters were scared. He reached the altar with help from 2 hunters. Let's go, he said. The 2 hunters hesitated for a moment, but trusted Jinwoo, and helped him climb onto the altar. As they did, 3 more flames came to life. Poosh, poosh, poosh. Jinwoo's eyes lit up. The number of flames matched the number of people. Song, Jinwoo, and 2 others with them made 4 in total. 4 flames for 4 people. The flames surrounded the edge of the altar. If you looked at how far apart the fires were, it seemed like the circle needed just 2 more flames to complete it. This suggested that their remaining companions would need to join them on the altar, for something to happen. Jinwoo turned to Song and asked, if we wait here, do you think other hunters will come to rescue us? Song shook his head in response. A week has passed since the gate opened for the first time. Those creatures will act before any rescuers can get here. I guess the association ignored the gate for too long, because it's a D rank. You know how groups like that are. The gate usually opens completely after 7 days. The main purpose of raids was to defeat the dungeon boss and close the gate within a week. If they failed, the magical creatures trapped inside would escape into the world. Jinwoo looked back. The giant was still sitting on the throne looking down at them with proud eyes. If that thing gets out, the destruction would be massive. The people in the chamber would be in great danger, and could get hurt really badly, either by the huge statue or the smaller ones. They knew they had to act fast. Jinwoo called for Juhee and Kim. Juhee got up on the platform first. Kim hesitated but then followed her. 2 more flames appeared, making a full circle around them. Whoosh! The hunters were startled by the sudden noise. What's happening? Just as Jinwoo had said, something was starting to happen. Small blue flames began to light up all around the edge of the platform, forming a ring. There were over 30 of them, placed very close together. 34, 35, 36. Jinwoo quickly counted all 36 small blue fires. There were 6 red flames, 1 for each person, but what about the 36 blue ones? Just then, thud. The doors suddenly swung open without any warning. The hunters jumped in surprise. They all wanted to run for the exit, but after seeing what happened to the younger hunter from their group, no one could move. It was unclear how they might die if they tried to take charge. Everyone looked at Jinwoo for help, but he stayed silent. He didn't have any answers right now. He wasn't sure if the open doors were a trick, or if it was safe to leave. Suddenly a loud creaking sound filled the room. It happened again. The hunters quickly looked around. What's happening? They exclaimed. They're getting closer. Something just moved. Everyone started breathing faster. The party thought the stone statues moved only when someone came near. But now they were a few steps closer. Jinwoo quickly figured out what was happening. It wasn't the statues moving. It was the platforms under them. The loud noise that hurt their ears was probably from the platforms rubbing against the ground as they moved forward. Did they stop? Kim wiped sweat from his face. While everyone else focused on the statues, Jinwoo looked down to check the blue flames. They were disappearing one by one. 3 were already gone. Creak, someone shouted. What was that sound? Where did it come from? Jinwoo looked up and noticed something strange. The statues right in front of him looked like they were a bit closer than the others. Why is this only happening to the ones in front of me? Maybe he had stopped paying attention to them. Jinwoo closed his eyes to make sure. When he did, the noise happened again. Creak. The noise stopped when he opened his eyes. The figures were much closer now. What's going on? What do we have to do? Jinwoo yelled. Don't take your eyes off the statues. It seemed like the statues began moving. When everyone looked away from them, they move closer when you're not watching. Jinwoo saw another blue flame disappear. Nothing had happened to his group though. There was no change in the stone statues either. Maybe Jinwoo started counting carefully in his head while he watched the statues. Like I thought, one of the small fires went out every minute. The blue flames were a timer. To follow the third rule, Jinwoo needed to stay on the altar until all 36 blue flames were gone. They were safe. If they watched the stone statues, they would likely survive this final round. Jinwoo looked down to check how many blue flames were left, so he could tell how long they had to last. There were 30 left. They just needed to hold on for 30 minutes. But that was Jinwoo's big mistake. The statues near Jinwoo moved closer to the altar as he counted the flames. The ground creaked loudly. A hunter standing with his back to Jinwoo let out a loud scream and ran toward the doors. The strange noises behind him had scared him badly. One of the red flames went out when he jumped off the altar. No! Jinwoo shouted. But surprisingly, the hunter who had screamed and run away managed to escape safely through the open doors. Jinwoo wondered in confusion. What just happened? Sung-hee got out. Jinwoo was facing away from the doors, so he hadn't been able to see what happened. Did anything change? But the doors closed a little. Are they still closing? No. They closed a fraction when that guy left the altar, and then they stopped. Jinwoo remembered that one of the red flames had gone out when the hunter left the altar. His heart sank. He finally understood the answer to the question that had troubled him while he stood at the altar. Why was this a test of their belief? He now knew the truth. This was especially hard for Jinwoo because his injured leg made it difficult for him to stand without assistance. What seemed like an escape was really a trick. They thought they saw a glimmer of hope. If everyone on the altar had rushed to the open doors at the same time, the red flames would have gone out, and the doors would have closed right away. Only fear and pain would have been left. But the altar was their only safe place. It was a place where everyone was safe, as long as they stayed where they belonged, and did what they were supposed to do. It was like choosing between something they could see, and something they couldn't. A rule said they had to show their faith by resisting tempting offers, even when things seemed really dangerous. In their situation there were two main factors. The first was Jinwoo himself. Most people would usually run to the open doors, but they stopped to listen to what he had to say. They were lucky and avoided the disaster when the doors closed completely. We were really lucky. That's the only way to explain it. He could do this because he had gained everyone's trust by solving the first two commandments on his own. A new problem came up unexpectedly. Someone left the altar. Now that hope was within reach. How would people react? It was obvious. The man who was helping Jinwoo pushed him aside and ran out of the room. Song quickly grabbed Jinwoo's back to keep him steady. Whoosh! As a man left the stage, another red flame disappeared, causing the doors to shut tighter. Creak! Hey! Kim shouted at the second person running away, but that person also escaped safely. Jinwoo counted the flames and shouted, "Don't move. We can't afford to lose anyone else." He looked around in all directions, front, back, left and right. They needed at least 4 people to watch all around them. Jinwoo, Jo-hee, Song and Kim stayed. If one person left, they would leave a gap where someone could sneak up. Kim wiped his forehead again. Sung, what's going on? Explain it to us. We just have to stay here like this until the blue flames disappear, Jinwoo said, sharing everything he had figured out so far. Kim nodded and listened carefully. After his quick explanation, Jinwoo added at the end, "We can get out of here alive." Each rule showed a way to survive the room, so the last one would be no different. All we need to do is stay right where we are. Jinwoo was completely sure they could survive without any more injuries if they trusted each other. Kim, however, thought differently. Sung asked nervously, Jin, you might be right. What if the doors close completely when time runs out?" Jinwoo didn't say anything. He had thought about all possibilities, but couldn't give them any guarantees until everything played out. Kim needed a definite answer. Staying alive was more important than just hoping everyone else would survive. "Sorry, but I can't do this," Kim said. Jinwoo called out, "Mr. Kim, Kim quickly got down from the altar and ignored Jinwoo's shouts as he ran toward the doors. He glanced back at the others once he reached the exit, but kept moving forward without stopping. Jinwoo gritted his teeth in frustration. Darn it. Jinwoo had saved their lives, but he got no thanks for it. Instead he felt betrayed. He had known it would be tough to watch all the statues without Kim. With 2 injured people, and someone really scared, it was almost impossible. The statues they couldn't see started moving. Creak, creak, the statues were closing in around them. Song looked at Jinwoo and Juhee and said, "You two should go." He sounded like he had given up. Mr. Song, like Kim said, "I was the one who brought you all here. If someone needs to stay behind, it should be me. But you have more time left than I do. You should go." Song smiled gently. He wanted to make them feel better about leaving without him. Jinwoo nodded reluctantly.